Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Galton Blackiston, legendary Michelin-starred chef and owner of the quite wonderful Morston Hall. Coming up on today's show, Galton sets the scene for our chat.
And you never know what's coming out of my mouth.
Phil makes a controversial statement.
Photocopiers are like chefs.
And Galton drops a big bombshell for us.
So you literally did not see it coming?
Did not see it coming, no.
All that and so much more as I chat through Galton's quite amazing journey so far. I was beyond thrilled to get this time with Galton, one of my food heroes, up at the simply stunning Morston Hall. He's got a great journey with highs and lows and lessons throughout, all told with his trademark good humour. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. Enjoy.
And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Galton Blackiston.
You got it right. You pronounced the name right.
Is that right?
Yeah, most people don't.
Right. Well, I remember actually, because you and I met for the first time ever earlier this year at HRC, which was a phenomenal event.
Yeah, it was.
Really, really loved it. And Claire Bosey kept calling you Galton,
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I think I told her.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah, you can imagine. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. Andrew, Nigel, Miles, Jamie. And I got frickin' Galton. So you can imagine that paired up with my surname.
Did they just run out of names in the end? Is that what it was?
Well, my ancestor is apparently, it is Francis Galton, who found out that everyone had individual fingerprints, and I got lumbered with this name.
Oh, wow.
So it's all right. People think, oh yeah, it's nice, it's it's too freaking unique.
Well, it served you well. It served you well. It's a recognisable name. So,
yeah.
But how are you anyway? What's new
Yeah,
with
I'm
you?
good. I'm really good. Really good. We're cooking really nicely, doing what we do here at Morston. You know, we play by the seasons all the time, and it's an exciting way to cook. I think we are now pretty unique in what we do, in the fact that we change the menu every day of the week.
Do you really?
The whole lot gets changed, and I think that's what keeps things exciting. Yeah, I mean, it would be a much easier task if we just kept the same menu, and then I understand that you can hone your skills absolutely even more. But I like the excitement of what's coming in, what can we use from the garden, what can we use, which people offer us, in particular fish and things like that now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do have the meat hanging, generally speaking, and we have very good suppliers. You're only as good as your suppliers. Yeah. And it's up to you not to bugger it up.
Do you know, I remember this, it's just sparked a memory in my memory bank all those years ago when I worked in operations and worked with the chefs on board cruise ships. This is where I got my start. And they always used to come in and use our photocopier. Yeah. Bear with me on this. And the photocopier kept on jamming all of the time. Yeah. And the chef said to me when he was coming in to photocopy his HACCP reports or something like that, he said, photocopiers are like chefs. If you feed them crap produce, in this case paper, they're going to jam. In a chef's case, if you feed them crap ingredients, there's only so much you can do. I can see where your
analogy comes from. I'm not too sure how to put those ones as a comparison, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, indeed. It's bizarre, isn't it? The things you remember, but there we are. So talk to us. Actually, we'll come on to Morston because this is obviously a massive part of your story. In any case, so let's go all the way back. I'd love to comment when I was doing some research on you about the fact that I think once upon a time you wanted to be an international cricketer.
I just wanted to be a cricketer. I was born in Norfolk. Lived in Norfolk in my first 12 years of life, and our family holidays, because I lived in central Norfolk, would always be coming to North Norfolk around here to go on holiday for our 2 weeks. This is before the days when people used to go abroad. Yeah. This was holiday time. My memories were blissful, amazing. 2 weeks of sunny holidays on this coast here, in a little house actually over in the distance. If you look from Morston Quay, you'll see a house in the distance. And that's called the Watch House. And so our 2 week holidays were spent over there. The only way you can get to it really was by boat. So we used to hire a little put boat with an outboard engine. And yeah, they were blissful holidays, and stayed in this little house with no electricity, no nothing like that.
Oh, wow.
But it was just beautiful, sort of camping with a roof over your head.
Yeah, proper
As a youngster,
escape.
yeah, and they were brilliant times. And then my father got a job in Kent, and that's how we then moved from Norfolk to Kent. Huge move. I hated every second of the idea of going from Norfolk to Kent.
Right.
But actually, when we got settled in Kent, really enjoyed Kent. And that's where my love for cricket became really strong, and was all right at cricket. But there's a big difference between being all right at cricket or quite good and being professional. It's the same with anything in professional, And cricket, in my opinion, is more about concentration than anything else, especially if you're an aspiring batsman. I could concentrate for a bit, but then it's like now I'm probably worse now. Yeah. I lose my concentration very quickly in this net. And used to find myself getting out in all sorts of different ways, and soon became clear that I wasn't good enough, even though I was at junior level, recognised by Kent and all that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. So, how were you at school? What was your what was your school life like?
I probably speak for like a lot of chefs. I'm not academic.
Yeah.
And my time was the sort of times when you sort of fell into cooking.
Right. Never.
You're not academic, so what can you do? Was my mum's sort of things. And I did a market stall as a 17-year-old. I was at academic college. I did a market stall in Rye, which is this lovely little Cinque-Port town in Rye. And market used to go on a Thursday, so I'd make all my homemade produce in the kitchen at home. Cakes, scones, pies, biscuits, you name it, I did it. And always used to use Fray Bentos mince. I don't know if Fray Bentos is still about now, but it used to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I used to make all my pastry and all that sort of thing, have a trestle table set up at Rye Market, and it was called Galton's Goodies. And it used to sell out every week. It would sell out. Testament to the fact that people they did then and still do, like homemade produce on market stalls and things like WI. You always see if you ever go to a market and see a WI stall, the cakes would be well sought after. And it was a sort of similar thing, I suppose, with me. And I did that for the best part of a year. Then my parents went and stayed up in the Lake District and met a person called John Tovey, who back in the day was quite a well-known character. He owned a hotel called Miller Hall. And they came back and said, you've got to apply there because he's looking for a youngster. So I did.
In the Lake District?
Yeah, I know.
God, that's a jaunt.
I'd never heard of the Lake District, let alone Windermere.
Right.
So we went tootling out. Again, in the days of handwriting, resume of yourself.
Yeah. God, they don't know they're born these days, do they?
No. He was looking for a youngster to train, and the rest is that I got the job and started in the kitchen, and having never been to college or anything like that, in a school of hard knocks, and that's where I learned. Stayed up in the Lake District ultimately for 10 years, and it was all right.
Oh, wow. Right.
Yeah.
How was that experience? Because it's your first experience of, I suppose, proper work, as it were.
Yeah, it was.
And how was that?
I remember it as being. Well, I look back on it really fondly, but at the time, kitchens were different places to how they are now. The head chef was actually a really nice guy. He still owns a place up in Ulverston, I believe, and he was really nice. But there were others in there. It was it was a typical kitchen where everyone was in for themselves, sort of thing, of those yesteryear.
Yeah.
And it was quite hard. And John Tovey himself was quite hard at times because he was in the kitchen. And if you did something wrong, then you'd have everyone used to wear clogs then, wooden clogs.
God, I don't remember that.
You'd get them chucked at you or clonked over your head or something like that. But it was that sort of army trainings that it made you not make mistakes. It made you concentrate. And I started off in the pastry and then eventually moved my way up to head chef. That was in the days, again, before you stayed where you used to stay at places and not move around too much.
Yeah.
Now it's totally different, of course.
Yeah.
But happy memories. Happy memories.
Yeah, plus I think there's a fine line, right, between being a hard place to work versus being a place where you're bullied or whatever. Yeah. And I think, we're often, I think certainly, and I've been guilty of this in my own career as well, is that the minute something gets tough, is that you look somewhere else.
Yeah.
But actually, if you persevere and work through that, as long as you're working with good people who have your best interest in heart, then actually what you take from the other side of that is
and
way
also,
more.
back in the day when I was a youngster, Michelin wasn't really spoken about.
Right.
At all. It isn't like it is now, or has been in the last 20 years. It really wasn't. I mean, now it's young ones move up for a progression on their careers, go from, if you're at a 1-star, you look to go to a 2 or 3-star or something like that. Then there's real progression. That wasn't about in my... I mean, Michelin was about, but the knowledge of chefs to move from Michelin to Michelin to Michelin wasn't about so much then. And you just stayed, happy you stayed.
Yeah. So you were there 10 years laterally as head chef?
Laterally as head chef. Then my parents retired back to Blakeney, which is the next village along this coast. And I'd always sort of had hankerings that I wanted to come back to North Norfolk. It's where, up in the Lake District is where I met my wife. And this place came up for sale. It's not like it is now because all the additions of the conservatories and all that are all add-ons.
Right, okay.
But it was this sort of flinted farmhouse which had been run by a couple who had bought it in the early 90s, in the very early 90s, that's in 1990. Then it was boom and bust time again. So it went from really good. They bought it, having never worked in hospitality before, and then got in a muddle with it. And by the time they wanted to sell it, they were made to sell it as such.
Right.
So we bought it from receivers, Harrods receivers, which I didn't know they had.
Right.
That. And it was a sealed bid job, and we got it. And I will say now...
Sealed bid?
Yeah, I know. It went to sealed bids.
Well, there's a sliding doors moment. Imagine if you hadn't.
But I'll tell you this now. But this is 32 years ago. You wouldn't get a 1-bedroom flat in Blakeney for what I paid for what we paid for this.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, somebody's misfortune is somebody else's fortune.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. They got in a muddle with it. It's like you see it quite often. It still happens now when people think that hospitality is this really exciting industry to go into, which it can be, but you need to know what you're up to. It's a lot harder if you just go into it on a whim and think, oh, I've got a bit of spare money, I'll buy a pub or a restaurant or a hotel. It's hard. Yeah,
probably harder than it's ever been.
Ever. We are in such hard times.
Yeah.
I'm all right because I don't have a mortgage, is what I would say, but I wouldn't want to be straddled with a huge mortgage around my neck.
Yeah, rent or
rent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. We were just talking about that very briefly before we turned the microphone on around, the message of any business, I suppose, not just hospitality, but you've really got to know what you're doing.
You do.
You can't fudge it now. I mean, you might have been able to do it when it was a boom time and everything was under control, but with business rates are high, rents are high, food cost is high,
utilities,
staffing
massively.
high. Yeah, all of these things are high. So you've really, really got to know how to make your business work.
You have to know how to ride the times as well.
Yeah.
And be able to run a tight ship, because you're so right. Things have changed dramatically, even in the last 5 years since COVID.
Yeah.
The world's changed.
Oh, immeasurably. Yeah. And who knows if it's the same forever now.
Yeah, I agree. There are some really good things. I think gone are the days now when staff, hopefully, they're not doing the 60, 70 hours, probably more back in the day. Now, our staff get 3 days off a week, do no more than 40 hours, 45 hours at worst. And that's the way it has to be. And that I'm really pleased about.
Yeah.
Because you get a real work balance, social life balance, which it should be.
Yeah.
In my day, 1.5 days off. And then even that, you'd go into work on your day off because you just wanted to be ahead of the prep all the time.
Yeah.
Those days have changed.
Yeah, as you say, thankfully, yes, because I think that balance that you talk about is the thing that ultimately I think will, in the end, drive stability. And maybe we'll find a time in the future whereby, because more businesses are that way minded and focused, like yourself, that you'll then get settled people who are happy where they are, who feel like they're respected and they've got a lovely place to come work. Yeah. And you don't have to look for the grass on the other side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that from that aspect is really good, but you're paying more money, like you say, for everything. Yeah. Yeah. And the only one thing I would say is a chef de partie from 10 years ago if you know what I mean. I'm not sure. Sous chefs, same thing.
Right, yeah. Don't say that around the ears of your own kitchen. But
to be fair, my guys are all good. I have no problems with them.
Yeah.
At all. But they know this place is like a college in many ways because it's a learning place. We do everything from the basis. We make our own puff pastry, we do all our pastries, breads, jams, marmalades, everything. So, and we're not that big, so you get almost one-to-one attention each time.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love my days in the kitchens. Love it.
Yeah. But I remember I was talking about this on stage at HRC around, I think the way that you'd prepped the asparagus and the potatoes was, you highlighted the fact that, I don't want to say it's a dying art, but there's less care and attention given to these kind of intricate details on things like preparation for presentation purposes.
Absolutely, because what I'm so aware of now, because we've had to put our prices up, because everything's gone up.
There's only so much you can absorb.
So to justify all of that, we have to. I feel that we have to buy the best ingredients, because people expect, they won't want a piece of salmon or something like that coming to. Listen, I could do some nice things of it or do something differently, but I want to give them seasonal produce. Yeah. And there's nothing nicer than doing an Norfolk asparagus or an English asparagus and trimming it up properly so they're all uniform, they're all level, they've all got their ears taken off. And that's not something I would do, but if I was setting up a pub, I wouldn't do it like that. Yeah. I'd just serve it as it is. But here, I think the attention to detail is what sets us apart a bit, I do think that. And turning a potato, nobody can turn a potato in there because I don't do it. Mm. But it's an art form in many ways. You have to get that shape correct if you're going to do it. It's the same with everything. There are some parts of old school which should absolutely remain in a kitchen. And that's the art of making stocks and sauces, in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah, you can add your other bits and pieces to it. Like a lot of stocks now, I see a lot of kitchens putting nori seaweed into their beef stocks and things like that, veal stocks. And I just see other things going on. But essentially, your building blocks are old school. You can have modern techniques, of course you can, and I love the modern techniques. And somebody who I think does it better than anybody is somebody like Gareth Ward. Yeah, I think his innovation and his cooking style, Japanese influence, is something that I love. That I absolutely love it.
And the UK's not really seen before. I think.
That's what makes him unique as well. So I love the innovational side, but you also have to cook to a certain degree to what your customers like. As such, how do I quantify that? Because I think we are innovative, definitely. I mean, for example, we've got the beautiful hand-dyed scallops on from Orkney, but we're serving it with like a Thai green coconut sauce on the bottom of it, and then we're doing other little bits and garnish on the top of it, which will give it quite a Thai influence. And I love that. But then I'll also do a Herdwick lamb with a lamb jus for main course. So you mix and match it. And that's I'm the biggest one to look in cookery books and things like that for new ideas and how people are doing things. And I always start from the back to the front, because when I started, it was in pastry. Oh, right. So I always tend to look at the desserts more than anything else to begin with. But I don't know. I'm only sort of pricking the surface as to what I know, and what I'd like to know. Yeah.
But that's the same with everyone, I think. Right? You find the thing that drives you and excites you, and that's your road, that's your path. Yeah. And yes, you might deviate off here and there to, that's interesting. Maybe we should give that a try. Yeah. But
exactly that. Yeah. Exactly that. I'm just learning now. I'd never done inverted puff pastry before up until a couple of months ago, and then I had it in a restaurant, Johnny Lake's restaurant in London, and I saw this puff pastry was up like this, and with all the layers, you could see the layers through it, and it blew my mind at that when you put your fork into it or your spoon into it, it disappeared when it went into your mouth. So I've learned how to do it, where you put the butter on the outside and then incorporate the dough base in the middle of it, and you make puff pastry back to front as such. Right. But it doesn't have to make a difference. Yeah. But it takes a bit of getting right. But
well, that's the thing. Perseverance. Yeah. As well. Anyway, let's get back to your story. Yeah,
sorry.
That's fine. This is great. But So Morston, you got the keys, as it were.
Yeah, and by hook and by crook, we started off with 4 bedrooms.
Was that more or less from day one-ish, or did you have some bits and pieces to do to get it in shape?
We bought the place in, I'll get this right, November, I think, of 1991, and had up until March to do it up, how we felt to do it up.
Yeah.
The beauty of Morston is that the people who had it directly in front of before us, no, not before us, people before the people who had it, we bought it off, were silversmiths, so they had a lot of money. And so whatever they did here, they did it properly.
Right.
So, we still have the same oil central heating plant. The windows were all really properly done. So they had money to splash out on the place. And that shows, and I've stayed true to that sort of mantra, that whatever you're spending, you're probably best spending a little bit more because the quality will be better.
Yeah.
And that's what we've learned. And you cut your cloth as to what you can afford back then. But now, I'd rather go for quality than quantity.
Yeah, I think that's a good mantra for business. Of course, you can only spend what you have, right? But at the same time...
But you end up replacing...
Exactly, it's a false economy, isn't it, in the end?
Yeah.
For that, yeah. So, started welcoming guests pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And describe what you had. You had 4 bedrooms, you said, I think, at the beginning.
All in the main house.
Right.
But that's the beauty of Morston, is we've got the space. And even in the main house, we've now got 7 bedrooms in the main house. That's what we started off with, the 4 biggest bedrooms, and we added on 3 more within the house. And then, obviously, I was on the first intake of Great British Menu, and I was up against them.
So, were you? I'd love to talk about that, but you had already established Morston as a food.
Yes,
hub.
I suppose so. We opened in '92, in March of '92. Then in 1999 was when we got the Star. A couple of years previous to that, we'd got a Bib Gourmand, which I was under the impression that doing the menu that we do, because I've always done a set menu, always done it and always changed it. I was under the impression that you couldn't really get a Michelin star doing this style of cooking that I did. So it was a massive surprise then in 1999, because Michelin used to in January. It always used to come out in January. And we'd got wind of one of the huge newspapers, got wind of that, getting a star. And you can imagine. It was incredible.
So you literally did not see it coming?
Did not see it coming.
That's the best way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the best way. And I think, to be fair on Michelin, because I go to the awards every year and I love it. I generally have too much to drink, yes, but I love it. And it's a real privilege to be asked to go each year.
But it's a proper celebration.
It is a proper celebration.
It should be an absolute celebration.
God, they used to do it really well back in the day. I remember going on a boat in Greenwich, starting off in Greenwich with Michelin at the Millennium celebrations, and they did it on a boat, and you used to get this incredible, lovely, thing for the middle of the table from Michelin, and Mum champagne, 2000 Mum champagne. That'd be worth a bit of money now. I've drunk that. It was a surprise. It was a huge surprise. It really was. And from there, it was onwards and upwards, really, I suppose.
So it was shortly after that you got the call for Great British Menu?
That came a little bit after that. I can't remember how long Great British Menu's been going, but been going a long time. But yes, that was a surprise as well. And you had to do a dummy run and come over here, and obviously, it's changed significantly now to how it is. Back then, in the first intake, it was myself, Nick Nairn,
You're going to
Bryn
drop
Williams.
some names now, aren't you?
Yeah, Bryn Williams, Richard Corrigan, Atul Kuchar, Michael Keynes, Marcus Waring.
God, do you know, I remember this.
Yeah.
I remember watching that.
And it was quite an iconic thing, and they did it then as a public vote. So you used to phone in to put your public vote down.
Right.
But that soon got stopped for reasons I don't want to go into. But it was a bit interesting, to say the least, because the first year I did it, the mantra was for the Queen's 80th birthday celebrations.
Right.
So that probably does tell you, it must be 20 years ago. And then they got a message from Buckingham Palace that the royalty wanted it to be a true representation of Great Britain. As soon as you knew that, you knew there'd be England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, to keep it like that.
Yeah.
And so there were 4 English chefs, a Scotsman, an Irishman, and a Welshman.
Right.
I don't need to tell you any more than that.
Yeah.
But what a platform. what a platform. You know, I remember I was up against Mr. Worrell Thompson, and I do think he came here, bless him, and and I went to his restaurant, and that's how you did this sort of thing then. But yeah, it was all right. It was a great platform. And on the back of doing all right at Great British Menu, we then were able to put 6 bedrooms down the bottom of the garden, which were extraordinary, you know, and then,
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
And did it again the following year. I was up against Sat Baines that year. Yeah, and Sat Baines famously did his 62-degree egg, which won him through on that dish.
I mean, you're just drop it. I
It
mean,
was
that's
eggs,
competition,
pea and
isn't it?
ham. Yeah. And it was a very, very innovative dish at the time. I mean, I have a problem with eggs, so I couldn't eat it. I can't have it when the white is softer than the yolk. Yeah, that's what happens when you put an egg in a water bath.
Right, yeah.
You can keep it in there for an hour and a half or whatever, but then you crack it and that white is snotty.
Right, yeah,
I would
not
say.
to everybody's taste.
No, you've got to like eggs to like that one. But there we are. But it was a brilliant platform. And then on the back of that, Market Kitchen and Saturday Kitchen, and then moved on with my mate from Yorkshire now. I've been doing the programme with him for a few years. And I know the importance of your face being shown on television programmes. You know, I've never yearned to be a regular on or anything like that. I wouldn't say no necessarily, but I think James and I could be quite entertaining at some times.
No doubt.
As long as he listens to me.
Well, that's never going to happen, is it?
No, exactly. He won't listen.
But that's to me, and when you said yes to coming on this show, that was one of the reasons why. I mean, I've watched you on television since I've started getting into food. And I've always found you to be, I just think you've got a wicked sense of humour. And, there's almost like, and please don't take this the wrong way, this is meant as a compliment, there's almost no filter. It's like what you see is what you get.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It is. And that's probably why it's a good thing that I came off Saturday Kitchen on BBC, because that is live. Right. And you never know what's coming out of my mouth.
Right. Yeah.
And that was one of the problems, I remember one time, I've got to tell you this, that I was on, and I think... it was either Tom Kerridge guest presenting or Glyn Pennell. I can't remember which one it was. And I was doing wild sea bass. And we literally, at this time of year, it doesn't happen so much now, but the local fishermen go out in their boats with a net and trawl it round. And our sea bass are really heavily protected. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And they used to come to the back, and I would get a knock on the back door. They'd have these incredible sea bass. You'd pay cash and you wouldn't ask questions. Well, of course, I said that on Saturday Kitchen.
Right, live.
And I have it into my ear. Amanda Ross, who's the lady who owns the programme, said to me, Galton, you shouldn't say that. Literally on that Monday morning, I was hauled in front of the fisheries of Lowestoft in Norfolk to say that. You can't say that. I said, well, it happened, and I'm best taking it rather than a little pub who'll deep fry it or something.
Yeah.
But no, I realised it was the wrong thing to say.
Yeah. But that must stop you in your tracks when you're in the midst of doing your set.
Yeah, I have a
somebody
shouting at you. Yeah, it did sort of. I then had to make an apology at the end of the show, I think. I seem to remember.
Right.
But it's all innocent. Yeah. But I was just telling it as it was back at that time.
Yeah. So back to Morston.
Yeah.
The evolution has begun at this point. You've had in the bedrooms.
Yeah.
How is at that time? How big is the dining room? How many covers are you doing?
Right. So we have, and this has stood true for most of our time here at Morston. We have 19 tables. That could be 19 twos or it could be 19 fours, effectively.
Right.
So we hover between 40 and 50 sometimes. Although this year is quite interesting because we either have boom or bust times. It's just the way it is. Mm. Yeah, and I've always I don't want to be a numbers game. I really don't. But obviously, you've got to take the money. You've got to take the money where it's available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely. And so it stayed much the same through till basically.
I mean, the menu
COVID.
has expanded in our years. We used to be a 4-course set menu. Now it's, I think, by the time you've had canapes and everything like that, it's sort of 9/10 courses. Some people include breads in that, but I don't include bread. But some places do as a course. But I don't want to get any bigger.
Yeah.
But I like the variety in the way we do things. I must admit, we do two different types of bread, and they change every night. 2 different types of butter, they change every night. So it's attention to detail is quite good.
Yeah, that feeds right into the whole message about doing business well, though, doesn't it? As well, in terms of, especially as you say, you're what would be deemed in the luxury space. So people have an expectation level, don't they?
They do.
Whether you're absolutely loaded and you can afford to eat like this every night, or whether you've saved up to come for your anniversary or whatever.
You're absolutely, and we get all sections. I didn't tell you about, because after Great British Menu and the success of all of that sort of thing, my passion is sport. Is Norwich City. Bless them.
Bless you. Yeah.
And
somebody else
I'm a season ticket holder there and all that sort of thing.
It's just down the road, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. And I love the football. I love the release valve football gives me when I go to watch it on a Saturday afternoon, get back for service. Although when we were in the Premier League, times changed all over the place, which became a nightmare to actually go and watch it. It's no longer 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was sitting watching Norwich play. This is over 10 years ago. And somebody said to me, would you ever do another Morston along the coast or anything like that? I get asked that one quite a lot still. But my answer immediately is always, well, never say never, but the only problem is with doing a Morston, it's going to cost me $1 million plus to do renovations. And that's not buying the place probably. I'd rather do fish and chips. And within 6 months of that, along came number 1 Chroma.
Did that then happen a little bit by accident? Was it something you had in your mind, or it's just?
I'd always had it in mind. I don't know why. I'd always had it in mind that I thought fish and chips could marry up really nicely with what I do because it's totally different. And what it's turned out to be is an incredible business. That one in the sleepy little town of Chroma. We now have 60 plus staff there.
Really?
It's an incredible thing. It's on 3 floors and it's huge.
Yeah.
The views all overlook the sea and Chroma Pier. And you look at Chroma and you think, this is this tiny little town. But
famous for crab, isn't it?
Yeah, famous for crab, yeah. Why is it so successful? I just feel that purely by accident, you've got on the left-hand side, a mile away, is huge caravan sites, all overlooking the sea.
Yeah.
And on the right-hand side from Overstrand towards Chroma, again, massive caravan sites. And everybody sort of filters into Chroma. And the first place they see is number 1. But it does go really well all year round now because of the pier. The pier show is so popular. You have a summer pier show, you have a Christmas pier show.
Right.
So you now get business all year round.
Wow.
Right?
Fish and chips is a
seasonless. And the beauty of it is that I don't have to be there. It runs there are so many dramas there, but most of the time you get a decent team in the kitchen, a decent team out front, decent managers and people like that. The guts of the place is a takeaway. That's the one which really churns things out, which is amazing. I think our record once was last year, actually. We did over 2,200 in one day. Fish. Now, that could be just fish and chips. That could be just chips, fish and chips.
Right, but regardless.
You can imagine. We have 8 pans on the main fryer, and they're going. One kept specifically for gluten-free intolerances and things like that.
Right.
But it's a machine. It's a brilliant machine, and I love every bit of it because we always source the best cod. In fact, back in the day when we first started, I had this fanciful idea that we'd only use wet fish caught from the North Sea. You can imagine when we first opened,
for 3 days, you thought no.
Yeah, we had to close because we were just in the kitchen was piled high. These boxes of cod had it in place in ice, you can imagine, by the time you got round to them, the ice was all melted on the floor and everything, because you just didn't have time. You were churning out, taking one box. Right, we'll do that. We had to close them in 2 hours. So then I got in touch with Mr. Stein down in Padstow and said, how do you do it?
He's got some experience with fish.
Exactly that. How do you do it? And he buys, I don't know if he does now, but he did then, buys his Icelandic cod. And we do the same. We have a boat, which I can name, which goes out and, we have 40 tons of, we buy our fish price at the beginning of the year, so it doesn't fluctuate. So we say, right, we want a minimum of 40 tons of this.
My life. 20
tons of haddock, 10 tons of plaice. And that's the way you can keep a settled price.
Right.
As such.
How does that get stored then? Or is it a case of
we don't have it all at once.
You
have it
your
when
quota.
Yeah.
Right.
They know that they're fishing and that we'll take that much.
Right.
It's sort of almost 70 tonne of fish in a year that we'll take.
But once again, there's a couple of things to unpack here actually. Once again, you're highlighting the importance of that supply relationship.
Yeah.
Two, my guess is that once again, you'll have this focus on quality because let's face it, whoever you are in the world, there's always time for a really good fish and chips, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's the nation's favourite.
Yeah.
It really is the nation's favourite. And if you can have fish and chips overlooking the sea,
even better.
Even better.
Yeah.
Even better. And you're absolutely right. We inherited when we took on the place at Cromer, the guy before had bought fish from Russia, I think it was, because obviously not. No. But that was a cheaper variety of fish. So we changed that. And now we can go out on the boat, go to Iceland, and they'll take us out on the boat and see this incredibly millions of pounds worth of fishing boat with all the technical. It's incredible. I've seen it. And
that's a great experience as well.
That is a great experience. I love going over to Iceland. I think Iceland is brilliant for food as well. But anyway, all the fish is then frozen at sea. And I'll tell you, I can put the best piece of cod caught from the North Sea against a piece of cod which was frozen at sea. I don't think you tell the difference.
Right.
I really don't. So the produce is massive. The things else which I learn about so much is different times of the year, the different sugar qualities and quantities in potatoes and the different varieties which are better for frying at different times of year. Obviously, we're just now on new season, new potatoes, which are great, the best to fry with. But as you come into November, December, January, you have to use a stored potato.
Right.
So the fen potatoes are really good, and different varieties hold different sugar quantities and starches. So, and some cook up better than others. And bearing in mind that we go through in the summer 2 tons of potatoes a day, that's a lot. That's 60 odd bags.
Yeah.
Potatoes,
And you're just one business.
Yeah.
As well. Imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It is a fairly unique one, I must admit. But we also do all sorts of other things. Obviously, we feature the Cromer crab, the lobster, oysters, if you want oysters, Blackiston oysters, which are brilliant. We do it all.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to unpack about this section of your journey is kind of exactly the story that you highlighted about, having the boxes and boxes stacked upon each other.
Yeah.
This, one, the business has almost happened by accident, but two, you've gone into a business that you don't really truly understand.
Yeah.
But for me, that's a really exciting message as well, because I remember even when I launched this humble little podcast, I had a chat with somebody who had a very successful podcast.
Yeah.
What should I do? What do I need to get in play?
Yeah.
And he just said to me, just get it launched and worry about perfection later.
Yeah.
And that's it's a really good mantra for business. Okay, yes, you need to have a plan of some kind.
Yeah.
But plans get changed, right? Things get ripped up. And you've got your idea could have started off on one track, but actually very quickly you kind of highlight that you've got to change track.
You're right. That person is right. Yeah, if you've got an idea, and I've thought many a times, because we used to open 7 days a week, but now because of staffing levels, since coming out of COVID, because you went from immediately after COVID, we were stacked like the rest of the country was. We were absolutely, champagne was the biggest seller, our Morston Hall champagne. You couldn't keep up with it. It was, people were desperate to go out, desperate to really enjoy themselves because they've been cooped up for a long period of time. And then with that, became very quickly staff burnout, and then staff were thinking, well, we've had this much time off, we did nothing, or very little. And actually, they looked at alternative industries to go into and things like that. So we then became very busy and then very quickly short-staffed. And so it became, the only thing I could really do is to shut a day, which was really alien to me.
Yeah.
But now I absolutely love the fact that we shut on a Monday. It gives you a chance to breathe. It means you can come back on a Tuesday and just ease yourself into everything again. And I really like it. I like the time. And as I say, the world has changed. And I like the fact that we close on a Monday now. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's part of the evolution of business, right? You can't do the same things forever. Yeah. You've got to adapt to what's going on around
sort of
you.
Icons of mine would be the guys at the waterside at Bray, Alan Ruhm, the late, great Michel Roux Senior.
Yeah.
And they close 2 days a week now.
Who'd have ever thought that, right?
I know, who would ever thought that? Northcote Manor do. And who would ever thought that? And I just think, you have to listen to these people and see what they're doing and realise that there's a reason why you're doing it. Yes, there's a margin taken off the bottom line, but sometimes we all have to just accept that you just have to take that hit for the benefit of the place, actually.
Yeah, but that's what's being an entrepreneur is all about, isn't it? Is about understanding your own business, where it sits in the world, and how you change and adapt to the times you're in.
No, exactly that. And now on a Monday, it gives me a chance to think about whether I want to do a podcast or anything, because I think it'd be quite entertaining.
You're great at it now, aren't you?
I don't know about how to do it, but I'd be quite interested. During lockdown, I did something from home with my son, youngest son, and it was quite entertaining, I think, because he went, or still isn't, into cooking at all. But just getting him to try and get an interest in cooking became quite entertaining.
Yeah.
But I'd love to have the time to actually do something, because I think there is something to be learned by doing the skills properly. But, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. But that's for the future.
Bless you. Yeah. Well, where do you think your entrepreneurial spirit came from?
Because I wasn't any good at anything else.
Really? Simple as that?
Yeah.
No, was there any inspirational figures?
I don't look at myself as being entrepreneurial. I look at myself as I met my ex-wife up in the Lake District. We stayed there for a long time, came back to do our own business. Was that entrepreneurial? I suppose it is. And then, as luck would have it, Chroma Thing came along. We've got a business partner in the Chroma Thing who, fortunately, is very like-minded and very hands-on. And I think that's quite important. If you're going to have a business partner, you don't want a sleeping business partner as such. You want a business partner who's willing to get their hands dirty. And that sort of works.
Yeah. Conscious of your time.
Yeah. Crikey.
They go quick, don't they?
I know.
Yeah, but a final couple of questions then before I let you get on your merry way. What's next?
Great question. I think the day that I actually get tired of cooking is the day for me to call it a day.
Right.
I don't get tired of cooking. I love the modern techniques and innovations on it. I've just bought myself an aero machine, for example, because I like the idea, but I've just bought myself a new juicing machine so I can juice olives and things like that and make different things with olives. But what is next? I'd always say that I'd like, number one, to go further than it is, and there are plans afoot, which I can't talk about as yet. I like Morston Hall. I don't want to expand Morston Hall. I want it to just be this beautiful haven of luxury, small luxury.
Yeah, you definitely created that.
And I don't know. Is there a never say never. I made a mistake with one of my books to do fish only. It's a great book, and it won all the sort of prizes for being all about fish, but it pigeonholed. If you're going to do a book again, it has to have a dessert, fish, main, veg, and all that sort of thing.
Otherwise, people just think you're a fish guy.
Yes, and not everybody, as much as I think everybody loves fish, they don't. So it sort of pigeonholes you a little bit, but it's a great book, and I'd never say never to another book, sort of highlighting the time after COVID.
Yeah.
Which have been so interesting, so different, I bang on about staff. You need staff, and we have fortunately good ones, but I can't have a one-to-one meeting. I have to have somebody with me, just in case it gets misconstrued or whatever happens like that.
Yeah.
And that's the way the world has changed. I have to be careful when I give somebody a bollocking in the kitchen. Otherwise the mental health comes out.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I have to be careful. And, like I always have said, that kitchens are hot houses generally, and things get said in the heat of the moment. But it's only once it's said and once it's done, finish.
Dealt with.
Forget.
Yeah.
And just learn from it.
Yeah.
You know. And, you know, I want the kitchen always to have the mantra of you're trying to do the very best you can. You're not cutting a corner. Don't cut a corner.
Yeah. And sometimes, as you say, things just, you know, get a tiny bit out of hand. But I think generally if the intention is a positive one, like you're trying to make somebody better for their own good, as well as your own business is good and everybody's good, then, you know, I think people can forgive and forget quickly.
Yeah, you'd hope so, but the world has changed.
Yeah.
And you have to be very careful now. Very careful. I never used to have an HR company. I do now, just to make sure I'm doing things right.
Yeah.
You know, because back in my day, it was different.
Yes, there was different HR methods back then, for sure. Final question, very quickly. We've spoken, obviously, a bit around the challenges of the industry, but I think we probably both agree that it's still a ridiculously amazing industry. What would be your kind of 3 main reasons as to why somebody should come into hospitality as a career?
It is still a brilliant industry, absolutely, because the rewards are there if you're going to put the hard yards in.
Yeah.
They're definitely there. We've been really fortunate at Morston. Morston has spawned some incredible chefs and front of house guys.
Yeah.
You know, one's just down the road, Greg, who's got a Michelin star in his first year at Meadowsweet in Holt, which is amazing. Another young lad who's now working in Norway. He got his first star and he came to me as a youngster. Kate, who's been on this year's GBM, she got to be head chef at, I don't know if it was Franz and all the other ones.
That's right, yeah. One of the Scandinavian powerhouses.
Great kid. Yeah, and she started off as a youngster here. Morston, Richard Bainbridge in Norwich. You know, he hasn't got a star, but it's still a great place.
Yeah.
Danny at the Swan at Ingham. All great chefs and gone down their way of doing things. And if you've got the ambition, you've got the drive, then it can be very exciting. It really have. And so that's, to me, the main thing is that you've got to have the passion.
Yeah.
You've got to have that passion to do it. And it can be such a rewarding industry. It doesn't matter, you know, my world has been changed even this year when we put a bar in there, that I've now got a mixologist. 2 years ago, I'd have told you, absolutely not. That's not Morston. This mixologist creates the most incredible cocktails. And I think I'm a good judge on a cocktail, maybe because I have a lot of them. But I never used to.
Practice makes perfect.
But I just think that's such an important part of the experience of going out now, is if somebody wants a cocktail, you make it a bloody good cocktail.
Yeah.
And you give it the frills and the spills and the service with it. And I love that side of things. And there's things that are moving all the time in the methods of cooking and all of that, which I enjoy. I enjoy seeing. So that's what, and it's the only thing I half know what I'm on about is cooking side of things. And I love it.
Yeah. Wow. No, please continue to love it. And thank you very much for your time. And
thank you for coming over.
And the chat. My absolute pleasure. What a stunning place you have. It's just a shame the sun's not out today. I'm sure
it
would have looked even better. But no, I think what you've done here is quite remarkable. How many years Michelin
32.
star now?
Oh, Michelin star 25.
Yeah, I mean, you don't do that out of luck.
No.
So, no, thank you so much, Galton.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Pleasure.
And there we have it. 25 years of having a Michelin star is quite a magnificent achievement and showcases Galton's unwavering devotion to excellence as well as his ability to evolve with the times. A massive thank you to him for giving up his time. I've got a cheeky bonus for you this Friday which you won't want to miss, so I'll see you then.